Saving money is stupid. At least, that's what you've been trained to believe is wrong. You've been conditioned your entire life to think saving is the responsible thing to do, the safe way to build security. From childhood, every parent, every teacher, every so-called financial expert has drilled into your head the same mantra: save your money, hold on tight, don't take risks. But that mindset is exactly what keeps most people trapped, not just financially, but mentally, because when you save money out of fear, you're not protecting yourself, you're limiting yourself, you're reinforcing scarcity, convincing your subconscious that there's never enough. You're worshiping safety at the cost of freedom. Most people save because they don't trust themselves to create more. They believe money is something that must be guarded, not generated. They cling to the idea that wealth is built by stacking coins slowly over time, but they never stop to ask the real question. If saving actually worked, why are so many savers still broke? Why do people who spend decades putting away every penny still end up worrying about bills, inflation, or retirement? The truth is simple: saving doesn't make you rich. It only gives you an illusion of control. It keeps you busy, it feels productive, but it never creates expansion. It's a defensive move in a game that rewards offense. Money is energy. It flows, it moves, it multiplies when it's in motion. The moment you trap it in a savings account, you stop its movement, and anything that stops moving begins to die. That's not wealth, that's stagnation. The wealthy understand this at a deep psychological level. They don't save to feel safe. They use money as a tool to create more opportunities, more leverage, more freedom. They invest, they risk, they circulate their capital, not because they're reckless, but because they understand the law of flow. You can't attract abundance while acting from fear. You can't grow wealth while protecting what little you have. People save because they think money is scarce, they think opportunities are limited, they think the system is unfair, and yet those same people watch others multiply wealth in the same economy under the same conditions. The difference isn't luck or timing, it's mindset. The saver thinks, what if I lose it? The wealthy thinker asks, what can I create with it? Saver wants to feel secure, the creator wants to expand. That difference defines outcomes. So when I say saving money is stupid, I don't mean spend recklessly. I mean stop living in financial fear. Stop letting the illusion of safety dictate your choices. Money is not something you save to survive. It's something you use to build. Every dollar sitting still is a dollar that's not working for you. The goal isn't to save more. The goal is to learn how to think differently about money, because once you shift from saving to creating, everything about your financial life changes, not just your balance, but your entire relationship with wealth itself. Saving money reinforces a scarcity mindset because it is rooted in fear, not abundance. Most people are taught from an early age that money is something fragile, something that can disappear at any moment. And the best way to protect it is by locking it away. The act of saving feels responsible, it feels mature, it feels safe, but underneath that surface lies a deep psychological belief that there will never be enough. Every time someone saves out of fear, fear of losing, fear of lack, fear of the unknown, they strengthen that internal message that money is limited, that opportunities are rare, and that their best chance of survival is to hold on tightly to what little they have. This is the foundation of a scarcity mindset. And it quietly governs every decision, every habit, and every financial pattern that follows. When a person saves because they believe more is coming, that's abundance. But when they save because they fear it might not, that's scarcity. The difference lies in emotion and intention. The scarcity-driven saver feels relief when they see their bank balance rise, but it's a temporary relief, a false sense of control. The underlying anxiety remains because the act of saving didn't remove the fear. It only momentarily quieted it. Deep down, they still don't trust themselves to generate more. They think security comes from hoarding money, but real security comes from understanding how to make it flow, how to create value, and how to attract more. Saving from fear reinforces the very limitation that causes financial struggle. The scarcity mindset shows up in subtle ways. It's in the hesitation to invest, the fear of taking a calculated risk, the tendency to delay decisions until it feels safe. It's in the thoughts that say, I can't afford that, or what if it doesn't work? It's in the emotional reaction to seeing money leave your account, as if every transaction is a loss rather than an exchange. This mindset teaches people to contract every time they think about money, to shrink rather than expand. They live in a world of limits, constantly measuring, calculating, and protecting, never realizing that this very behavior is what keeps them from growing beyond their current level. People with a scarcity mindset often justify their beliefs with logic. They say things like, I'm just being careful, or it's smart to save for a rainy day. But that logic is fear disguised as wisdom. It's the voice of survival, not success. Saving can be smart, but when it becomes your only strategy, it's a form of self-imposed limitation. It's a belief that you can't trust yourself with money, that you can't trust the world to provide, that opportunities are too risky to take. It's the belief that life is unpredictable and that your only defense is accumulation. The more you accumulate, the safer you feel, until you realize that safety never arrives because fear always finds something new to cling to. Money responds to energy, and fear-based energy repels it. When you operate from scarcity, you send out the vibration that says, I don't have enough. The universe mirrors that belief back to you in your circumstances. You attract situations that confirm your mindset, unexpected bills, unstable income, sudden expenses, because your subconscious is programmed to seek validation for what it already believes. The scarcity thinker doesn't notice this pattern. They just double down on saving even more tightly, thinking the problem is lack of discipline or bad luck, when in reality it's their energy that's causing the cycle to repeat. When you believe money is scarce, your actions follow that belief. You play small, you take fewer risks, and you miss opportunities that could multiply your wealth. You see others succeed and rationalize it as luck or privilege, not realizing that their difference lies in mindset. Abundance thinkers don't fear money leaving their hands because they know they can always make more. They view money as a tool, a resource that expands when used properly. Scarcity thinkers view money as a lifeline, something that must be preserved at all costs. And because they see it that way, they never experience the freedom that wealth truly brings. The irony of saving from scarcity is that it often leads to the very outcome people fear most: lack. Inflation erodes their savings, opportunities pass them by, and life's circumstances shift faster than their safety net can grow. They stay in jobs they hate because the idea of risking that steady paycheck feels too dangerous. They avoid starting businesses, investing, or exploring new ideas because they've trained their minds to equate risk with loss. Their identity becomes tied to security, not growth. And as a result, they live comfortably but never expansively, safe but never truly free. The scarcity mindset is not just about money, it's about self-worth. People who fear losing money often fear losing validation, stability, or identity. They've been taught to measure success by what they can hold on to, not by what they can create. They fear uncertainty because they've never been taught to trust themselves in it. Saving becomes their shield against failure, but also their cage against expansion. They believe they're being smart, but they're really being small. Every decision they make reinforces the same subconscious message: I don't have enough and I can't make more. That belief shapes their reality every single day. Breaking free from this mindset requires a shift in perception, not a change in strategy. It's not about saving less. It's about thinking differently about why you save. When your decisions are driven by fear, they lead to contraction. When they're driven by trust and confidence, they lead to expansion. Abundance begins in the mind long before it appears in the bank. People who trust in their ability to create don't fear spending because they know they can replace and multiply what's spent. They use money to build momentum, to create value, to open new doors. The more they circulate, the more they attract. They understand that money is a mirror of their beliefs. The scarcity mindset is deeply ingrained, but it's not permanent. It's a learned response conditioned through generations of people who equated savings with survival. Our parents and grandparents lived in times where saving was essential, where opportunities were few and the economy was unstable. But today, knowledge, technology, and access have changed everything. Money moves faster, ideas scale instantly, and the ability to create wealth is more available than ever before. Yet most people are still operating with old programming, trying to build wealth with the same cautious mindset that was designed for survival, not abundance. To evolve financially, you must first evolve mentally. You have to recognize that saving money isn't the path to wealth. It's a tool, not a philosophy. The real work lies in shifting your beliefs from fear to faith, from scarcity to creation. Every time you choose to act from trust instead of fear, you begin to rewrite your financial reality. You stop reinforcing the belief that money is scarce, and you start embodying the truth that abundance is created through flow, through confidence, through action. And when that internal shift happens, your outer world begins to reflect it in ways you never imagined possible. Money must flow to grow because movement is its natural state. Just like energy, water, or air, the moment it stops moving, it begins to lose value, both economically and energetically. Most people think that keeping money safe means holding it still, locking it away, and not touching it unless necessary. But that's where they misunderstand its true nature. Money is designed to circulate, to create, to exchange hands, and to expand its influence through use. The act of keeping money static is not protection, it's suffocation. The flow of money reflects the flow of belief, trust, and confidence within you. When you allow it to move, you're not losing it, you're activating its power to grow beyond what you can control directly. Money has no purpose sitting idle. It's not meant to collect dust in a savings account or to be admired as a number on a screen. It's meant to move through systems, to fund ideas, to solve problems, to create opportunities. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They don't cling to their money. They put it to work. They invest it in ventures, businesses, real estate markets, or themselves because they know every dollar in motion is a seed planted for future abundance. Every time money circulates, it generates value somewhere, whether it's creating jobs, funding innovation, or expanding networks. The moment you hold on too tightly, that potential is lost. You trap not only the money, but also the energy that creates more of it. People who fear losing money usually don't understand how growth happens. They want guarantees before they act. They want security before they risk. But those desires are rooted in control. They want the outcome before the process. Yet money grows only when you surrender control, when you trust the flow. The same way a farmer can't grow crops by hoarding seeds, you can't grow wealth by hoarding cash. Seeds must be planted in the right soil, watered, and given time to grow. Money operates by the same principle. It multiplies through investment, use, and circulation. Holding it is like keeping seeds locked in a drawer. They never sprout, they never yield, and their potential is wasted. The flow of money is also psychological. When you allow money to move freely, you communicate abundance to your subconscious mind. You affirm that there's always more coming, that you're not afraid to let go because you can create again. You reinforce confidence in your own ability to generate, which expands your energetic capacity for wealth. But when you restrict money, when every purchase feels like a loss, when every expense feels painful, you're teaching your mind that money is scarce, that letting go equals danger. This belief builds walls around your financial reality, limiting how much you allow yourself to receive. Flow creates expansion, restriction creates stagnation. What you believe about money's movement shapes how much of it can move toward you. Money flow also mirrors your emotional flow. People who are emotionally rigid, fearful, or controlling tend to experience financial blocks because both are expressions of energy. When you're open, creative, and generous, you attract more flow in every area. Relationships, opportunities, and yes, money. This doesn't mean reckless spending or impulsive decisions. It means aligning your financial choices with growth, not fear. For example, investing in education, tools, or opportunities that expand your capacity is an act of flow. It's not about the immediate return. It's about trusting that what leaves your hand returns multiplied. The moment you hesitate from fear, you block that circulation and confirm to the universe that you're not ready for. More in an economy, money flow determines health. When people spend, invest, and exchange, economies grow. When people hoard and freeze their capital, systems weaken. The same principle applies to personal finances. A person who circulates money intelligently experiences expansion because every transaction connects them to new opportunities. Someone who only saves experiences contraction because every decision is based on minimizing loss rather than maximizing growth. The difference is not in how much money they have, but how they allow it to move through their lives. The more freely it flows, the greater its capacity to return. Wealthy individuals and successful entrepreneurs have one thing in common. They view money as a servant, not a master. They understand that the purpose of money is not to be worshipped or guarded, but to be used as a creative force. They send it out confidently because they know it will come back amplified. When they invest, they think in terms of expansion, not preservation. They trust the natural rhythm of flow, and that trust becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because when you believe in flow, you attract circumstances that keep money moving toward you. The energy of trust invites growth. The energy of fear invites stagnation. The concept of flow extends beyond financial logic. It touches the spiritual and energetic realm. Everything in life that grows requires circulation. Blood must flow for the body to live. Air must flow for the lungs to breathe. Water must flow for nature to thrive. The same law applies to money. It's part of the same universal rhythm. When you try to stop it from moving, you're resisting a fundamental law of nature. And nature always balances itself. The more you try to restrict, the more life pushes back through unexpected expenses, emergencies, or missed opportunities. Those events aren't random. They're your reality's way of restoring flow. Money flow doesn't mean careless spending. It means purposeful direction. It means channeling your financial energy toward creation instead of storage. spend to grow, invest to expand, give to circulate. Each of those actions creates movement, and with movement comes momentum. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence attracts more flow. The more you participate in this cycle consciously, the more abundance you experience. People who fear losing money often forget that the flow always returns to its source when guided with intention. The energy you send out through value, generosity, and trust comes back to you in ways you can't predict, sometimes as profit, sometimes as new connections, sometimes as timing that shifts everything. Most people misunderstand flow because they equate movement with loss. They see money leaving their account and feel anxiety, not realizing that every transaction is a reflection of exchange, not depletion. When you pay for something, you're not losing, you're transferring energy, you're rewarding value, sustaining a system that allows growth for everyone involved. When that system circulates properly, it naturally brings value back to you. Money that sits idle creates no exchange, no energy, no gratitude. Money that moves sustains life, business, and opportunity. The world's wealthiest people keep money flowing constantly because they know stopping it is equivalent to killing it. The flow mindset also demands trust in timing. Sometimes money doesn't return immediately. Sometimes it leaves for a while to grow elsewhere before finding its way back. Most people panic in that gap between giving and receiving. They start doubting the process, retracting their energy, closing off the very flow they initiated. But true abundance thinkers understand that money flow works like a tide. It recedes before it returns with greater force. Patience and faith in the process are part of maintaining flow. If you pull back too early, you interrupt the cycle and block the larger return that was already forming. When you start treating money as flow, your relationship with it changes. You stop obsessing over accumulation and start focusing on direction. You no longer ask, how can I keep it? But instead, how can I use it to grow? That shift alone transforms your financial behavior. You become more intentional, more creative, and more open to opportunities. You start seeing the world through expansion rather than limitation. Money, in turn, begins responding differently because it mirrors your new energy of trust and freedom. The flow becomes natural, continuous, and self-sustaining. Every act of giving, spending, or investing becomes part of an ongoing cycle that keeps creating more movement, more opportunity, and more abundance in your life. The illusion of safety keeps people trapped in fear because it gives them the false comfort of control while quietly stealing their potential for growth. Most people spend their lives chasing security, steady jobs, guaranteed incomes, predictable outcomes, believing that if they can just lock down certainty, they'll finally be free from anxiety. But that illusion of safety is the very prison that keeps them stuck. It's not safety they're seeking, it's relief from fear. And because fear never disappears through control, they end up living smaller lives, trading their dreams for a sense of stability that doesn't actually exist. They mistake routine for security, but what they're really doing is building walls around themselves to avoid uncertainty, unaware that those same walls block opportunity, creativity, and freedom. The desire for safety is natural. It's rooted in human biology. The brain is wired to avoid danger, to seek patterns that feel familiar. But in the modern world, this instinct no longer protects us, it limits us. When people cling to safety, they avoid change. When they avoid change, they avoid growth. Safety becomes an emotional addiction, a habit of fear disguised as responsibility. They tell themselves they're being careful, they're planning wisely, but underneath that reasoning is the voice of insecurity whispering that they can't handle the unknown. The illusion of safety gives them permission to stay comfortable, but comfort is a silent killer of potential. Nothing extraordinary is born out of comfort. The moment you prioritize safety over growth, you stop evolving in the financial world. This illusion shows up in countless ways. People refuse to invest because they fear losing money. They stay in unfulfilling jobs because the paycheck feels dependable. They avoid entrepreneurship because it looks uncertain. They settle for good enough because the idea of risking what they have for something greater terrifies them. Yet when they look closer, they realize that their so-called safety isn't even real. That secure job can disappear with one company decision. That savings account loses value every year through inflation. That predictable life they built can be shaken in a second by events beyond their control. The irony is that by trying to avoid uncertainty, they end up living in constant quiet fear of it. The illusion of safety feeds on the idea that control equals security, but control is a myth. You can't control markets, economies, or circumstances. The only thing you can control is your mindset, your adaptability, your creativity, and your response. True stability comes from those inner qualities, not from external conditions. The people who thrive in uncertain times are not those who cling to safety. They're the ones who trust their ability to navigate change. They move with the flow of life instead of resisting it. They don't fear losing because they understand that even loss is part of growth. The illusion of safety tells you to hold still. Reality rewards those who move. Fear disguises itself cleverly in the pursuit of safety. It sounds logical. It sounds responsible. It even earns approval from society. The person who takes risks is called reckless, while the one who plays it safe is praised for being wise. Yet wisdom without courage becomes stagnation. Playing it safe might keep you from failing temporarily, but it also keeps you from winning permanently. Safety becomes the excuse for inaction. You tell yourself the timing isn't right, that you need more preparation, that you'll take the leap once. Things are stable, but stability never truly arrives. Life doesn't become safe before you act. It becomes more stable because you act. Waiting for safety before moving forward is like waiting for waves to stop before learning to swim. The illusion of safety is also deeply psychological. It's not about the external world. It's about how people relate to fear internally. Most don't want safety. They want predictability. They want to know what's coming next so they can avoid discomfort. They build their lives around minimizing surprises. But predictability doesn't equal happiness. In fact, it breeds boredom, anxiety, and resentment. Humans are not built for sameness. We're built for challenge, creation, and adaptation. The moments that define growth are always uncomfortable. The illusion of safety tricks the mind into believing comfort equals peace. But peace doesn't come from safety, it comes from confidence. The more you trust your ability to handle uncertainty, the less you need safety to feel secure. The marketplace thrives on this illusion. Institutions, corporations, and governments sell safety as a product. Insurance, fixed income, savings plans, job benefits, all designed to make you feel protected while keeping you dependent. People who buy into the illusion become consumers of comfort rather than creators of wealth. They spend their energy maintaining what they have instead of building what they could have. They don't realize that security sold to the masses is just control packaged as care. The system rewards compliance, not courage. And the longer you stay addicted to safety, the more you surrender your freedom to choose, create, and expand. The illusion of safety also manifests in relationships, decisions, and personal growth. People stay in relationships that no longer serve them because they're afraid of being alone. They avoid hard conversations because they fear conflict. They stick to routines because change feels risky. But safety without fulfillment is just a slow form of decay. When you choose safety over authenticity, you start losing pieces of yourself. You may feel secure, but you're not alive. You're surviving, not living. Real fulfillment demands risk, the risk of being misunderstood, the risk of failure, the risk of stepping into the unknown. Every significant transformation requires leaving the illusion of safety behind. Fear creates convincing stories to keep you in that illusion. It whispers that if you step out, you'll lose everything. It tells you that others who tried failed. It shows you examples of risk gone wrong. But what fear doesn't show are the millions of quiet deaths that happen in safety. The dreams never pursued, the talents never expressed, the potential never realized. Those aren't dramatic losses. They're invisible ones, the kind that slowly eat away at passion and joy. The illusion of safety doesn't protect you from failure. It guarantees a different kind of failure. The failure to grow. The truth is, safety feels good because it gives you the illusion of control over uncertainty. But uncertainty is not the enemy, it's the birthplace of creation. Every opportunity, every breakthrough, every fortune is hidden within uncertainty. The moment you stop fearing it, you start mastering it. You begin to see that the only real safety lies in adaptability, not in stillness. The person who can adjust, who can think, who can create, who can pivot, that's the person who's truly secure. No matter what happens externally, safety isn't found in holding on. It's found in letting go of the need for control. When you stop chasing safety, you start chasing possibility. You begin to live from curiosity instead of fear. You start asking, what if it works? Instead of what if it fails? You stop clinging to the known and start embracing the potential of the unknown. The illusion of safety loses its power the moment you realize that the comfort it offers is temporary and the cost it demands is your growth. Fear keeps you still, faith keeps you moving, and movement, not safety, is what keeps you alive. Wealth comes from creation, not preservation, because true financial power is born from the ability to generate, not the obsession to protect. Most people spend their entire lives trying to preserve what they have, thinking that holding on tightly is the key to security. But in doing so, they forget that everything great ever built came from expansion, imagination, and movement. Preservation is defensive, creation is offensive. Preservation looks backward, creation looks forward. You can't create wealth by clinging to what's already earned because wealth isn't a fixed amount of money. It's a continuous process of producing value. The difference between those who accumulate real wealth and those who only protect small sums lies entirely in how they think. The creator believes in abundance, in growth, in ideas that multiply. The preserver believes in scarcity, in safety, in keeping things as they are. The moment you start protecting instead of creating, your wealth begins to decline, not just financially, but mentally. The psychology of preservation is rooted in fear. It says, I've worked too hard to lose this. It focuses on defense, on avoiding loss rather than pursuing gain. But the energy of fear doesn't build, it only blocks. When you preserve, you live in reaction to the past. When you create, you live in response to the future. Money that's preserved decays because it's removed from circulation. Ideas that are preserved fade because they're never tested. Skills that are preserved weaken because they're never challenged. The act of preserving comes from the illusion that what you have is fragile, that success must be guarded, but the truth is that anything worth having must grow to stay alive. Wealth is not a static possession. It's a dynamic expression of your ability to evolve. Creators see money differently. They see it as a tool, as energy that responds to direction. They don't ask, how do I keep this safe? They ask, how do I multiply it? They understand that money grows through purpose, through use, through flow. They're not afraid to spend. When spending expands their reach or impact, they're not afraid to invest. When investment aligns with vision, they know that the value of money lies in its movement, not in its storage. Creation requires faith in process, while preservation relies on fear of loss. Those two mindsets can't coexist. You either live as a creator who builds, risks, and grows, or as a protector who hides, hesitates, and declines preservation. Often feels responsible, but it's a subtle form of stagnation. People convince themselves that playing it safe is wise. They save excessively, avoid investment, stick to the familiar, and call it prudence, but prudence without progress is just disguised fear. Every great fortune ever made was built through creation. Through taking ideas from the unseen to the tangible, wealth is the byproduct of vision meeting execution. It's the result of daring to imagine something that doesn't yet exist and having the courage to bring it into reality. That act of creation doesn't just generate money. It generates confidence, purpose, and freedom. Preservation generates none of that. It only maintains what's already built, slowly losing value as the world evolves. The reason most people never experience exponential wealth is that they never step into creation. They rely on preserving a paycheck, a savings account, a small business, or a set of safe habits. They think wealth is about accumulation, but accumulation without innovation leads to decline. The world changes constantly. Markets shift. Technologies advance. Needs evolve. If you're only preserving, you're falling behind, even if it looks like you're standing still. Creation is the only force that matches the pace of change. The wealthiest people on earth understand this. They reinvent themselves, their businesses, their strategies continuously. They don't hold on to what worked yesterday. They build for tomorrow. They know that what's preserved eventually perishes, but what's created continues to multiply. The act of creation requires a specific mindset, one that sees problems as opportunities, one that thrives in uncertainty. The creator's mind doesn't focus on what's missing. It focuses on what's possible. It asks questions like, what can I build? What can I improve? What can I contribute? That curiosity fuels innovation, and innovation is the foundation of wealth. Every breakthrough product, every successful enterprise, every fortune began with an act of creation. Preservation, on the other hand, silences curiosity. It says, don't risk what you have. It kills experimentation, which kills progress. People who cling to preservation miss the new wave because they're too busy trying to protect the last one. They spend so much time guarding the castle that they forget how to expand the kingdom. Money has no loyalty to those who keep it idle. It flows to those who move it, who give it purpose. When you invest in creation, whether in a business, in skill development, or in solving problems, you send a message of expansion to the universe. You declare that you're not afraid to engage with life, to take part in the flow of growth. That energy attracts more opportunities, more connections, more wealth. Preservation communicates the opposite message: fear, contraction, distrust. The energy you emit determines the opportunities that find you. That's why wealth creators often experience momentum. They're constantly in motion, constantly building, constantly aligning their actions with growth. Even in times of uncertainty, creators see chances where preservers see threats. Economic downturns, market crashes, and crises become openings for innovation, while preservers pull back and hide. Creators move forward and build. History shows this pattern repeatedly. The greatest fortunes often emerge during times of fear because creators are the few willing to act when everyone else freezes. Preservation is reactive, creation is proactive. The creator's question is never, how do I survive this? It's, what can I make from this? That shift in focus changes everything because it transforms fear into power. The emotional difference between creation and preservation is enormous. Preservation keeps people anxious, constantly looking over their shoulders, worrying about what could go wrong. Creation fills people with excitement, possibility, and purpose. The act of building something new fuels motivation. It connects you to something larger than yourself. Wealth built through creation carries fulfillment because it represents expression. It's a reflection of your vision, your effort, your belief. Wealth built only through preservation carries tension because it represents fear. It's a reflection of what you're trying not to lose. The energy behind the wealth determines how it feels and how it grows. Creation doesn't just apply to money, it applies to identity. People who create are always expanding who they are. They're learning, experimenting, evolving. They understand that the real asset isn't the money they hold, but the mind that made it. That's why they never truly fear loss. You can take away what they earn, but you can't take away their ability to earn again. Preservation builds dependence on the external. Creation builds independence through capability. The creator trusts their skill and vision. The preserver trusts external conditions. That's why the creator keeps winning over time. They know that wealth is a reflection of who you are, not just what you own. When you start focusing on creation instead of preservation, your relationship with money changes. You stop asking how to keep what you have and start asking how to expand it. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop fearing loss because you realize that growth is infinite. Creation keeps your energy alive, your ideas fresh, your opportunities multiplying. Preservation keeps your energy tight, your thinking narrow, your potential dormant. The creator lives in possibility. The preserver lives in protection. One builds empires, the other maintains walls. The more you create, the more confident you become. And that confidence becomes your true wealth because it ensures you'll never need to preserve. You'll always know how to generate more. Financial freedom starts with trusting your ability to generate, not to save, because real wealth is not measured by how much you keep, but by how confidently you can create more whenever you choose. Most people believe freedom comes from having a certain amount of money in the bank, from building a cushion large enough to feel safe, but that mindset traps them in dependency. They rely on what they've already accumulated instead of trusting in their own ability to produce again and again. Saving gives you a sense of temporary comfort. Creation gives you lasting confidence. Freedom doesn't come from a number. It comes from belief. When you fully trust your ability to generate income, ideas, and opportunities, you stop worrying about loss. You stop making decisions from fear. You stop seeing money as a lifeline and start seeing it as a tool. The moment you realize that your real source of wealth is internal, you stop depending on the external for your sense of safety. People who don't trust their ability to generate are always in survival mode. They see money as something scarce, something that could disappear at any time. And because of that belief, they cling to every dollar. They save excessively. They avoid risk. And they fear change. But that same fear keeps them from expanding, from exploring, from becoming more valuable in the marketplace. Their focus remains on protection, not production. They think the goal is to secure what they have, but the truth is that the only true security is in skill, creativity, and adaptability. When you know how to generate, you can rebuild no matter what happens. You can lose everything and still not lose yourself, because your wealth isn't tied to your possessions. It's tied to your potential trusting. Your ability to generate means shifting your mindset from dependence to creation. It means seeing yourself as the source, not the outcome. People often think money comes from jobs, businesses, clients, or the economy, but those are just channels. The real source is the value you create and the confidence you have in doing it repeatedly. Once you understand that you can always create value, external circumstances lose power over you. You no longer panic when markets crash or when income slows down because you know you can pivot, innovate, and start again. That level of trust is the foundation of financial freedom. It's not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about mastering it. This trust doesn't appear overnight. It's built through action. Every time you take a risk and see it pay off, every time you solve a problem, every time you make something out of nothing, you strengthen that inner belief. The problem is that most people never give themselves the chance to experience it. They stay stuck in preparation, waiting until they feel safe enough to act. But that safety never arrives because trust is built through doing, not waiting. You can't think your way into confidence. You have to act your way into it. The moment you take ownership of your ability to generate, fear begins to lose its control. You stop seeing money as luck or timing and start seeing it as a skill you can refine. Financial freedom is not about escaping work. It's about choosing it. When you trust your ability to generate, you no longer work out of desperation. You work from inspiration. You're not chasing money. You're creating value and letting money follow. This shift in motivation changes everything. People who work for survival feel drained because their focus is on scarcity. People who work for creation feel alive because their focus is on growth. The difference isn't in what they do, it's in why they do it. Freedom isn't having enough to stop working, it's being confident enough to know you can always create more no matter what happens. That confidence makes money a byproduct, not a pursuit. The lack of self-trust is the real reason. Most people never achieve financial freedom. They don't believe in their ability to sustain abundance. They fear losing what they earn because deep down they doubt they can replicate it. This is why people who win the lottery often end up broke. They received wealth, but they never developed the mindset of creation. Without that inner foundation, external success is temporary. On the other hand, those who trust their ability to generate can lose everything and recover quickly because their wealth isn't in their bank, it's in their mind. They understand that creation is infinite. You can lose money, but you can't lose mastery. Trusting your ability to generate also changes your relationship with time. When you live in fear, time feels like an enemy. You rush to save, to accumulate, to reach a goal before it's too late. But when you trust yourself, time becomes your ally. You realize that you're not racing against it, you're working with it. You start thinking long term, making decisions from vision instead of panic. You stop needing quick returns because you understand that creation compounds. Each skill you develop, each connection you build, each lesson you learn adds to your capacity to generate more in the future. That's the real compounding effect of wealth. The compounding of capability trust is also what separates entrepreneurs from employees, leaders from followers. The entrepreneur steps into uncertainty knowing they can create solutions. The follower waits for certainty before acting. The entrepreneur invests because they trust in their ability to adapt. The follower saves because they don't trust themselves to recover from loss. Yet both face uncertainty. The difference is one uses it as fuel while the other uses it as an excuse. Financial freedom isn't about escaping risk. It's about embracing it intelligently because you know you can handle it. When you truly trust your ability to generate, risk stops being a threat and starts being an opportunity. That trust also liberates you from fear-based decisions. Most financial mistakes come from fear. Fear of missing out, fear of loss, fear of failure. When you trust yourself, you no longer react emotionally to money. You move strategically, calmly, and with purpose. You stop chasing quick fixes because you know long-term creation always wins. You stop overanalyzing every decision because you know action builds clarity faster than overthinking ever will. You start living from conviction, not caution. That emotional stability is what separates those who merely make money from those who sustain it. Trust creates inner peace, and inner peace allows better decisions, which lead to greater results. The ability to generate also creates a sense of freedom beyond finance. It frees you from dependency on systems, bosses, or circumstances. It allows you to design life on your terms because you know how to produce value wherever you are. You become adaptable, flexible, and shakable. That's real power, the kind that can't be taken away because it's built on who you've become, not what you've acquired. The person who can create income, ideas, and impact from nothing is never poor. The person who depends on savings alone always lives one unexpected event away from fear. The path to this level of freedom begins with small acts of creation. Each time you choose to solve a problem, start something new, or invest in yourself, you're reinforcing the belief that you can generate. You're proving to yourself that you're the source. Over time, that belief compounds into certainty, and when certainty replaces fear, your decisions change. You take bold moves. You seize opportunities others hesitate to touch. You stop hoarding and start expanding. You stop protecting and start producing. Financial freedom isn't built in banks. It's built in the mind that knows it can always create again and again without waiting for the world to make it safe first.